what they thought was a credible threat. And the LAPD chief defending that decision.
It is very easy, in hindsight, to criticize a decision based on results that the decider could never have known. It is also very easy to criticize a decision when you have no responsibility for the outcome of that decision. All of us have the same goal in mind. We want to keep our kids safe. Our community, Southern California, has been through a lot in the recent weeks. Should we risk putting our children through the same?
Well, if he sounded a little defensive to you, that's because New York City received the same threat, but officials here in this city decided it was a hoax immediately. So what makes a threat credible? Coupled with the recent attacks, obviously, that fresh in our minds, the big question also is, are the bad guys winning? Joining me now, Bo Dietl, former NYPD detective, David Katz, former DEA agent, and Steve Rogers, former military intel officer for the FBI. Bo, I'll go with you. New York, LA, they get the same threat from the same source. New York immediately dismisses it for a variety of reasons. LA empties out the school or sends everyone home. Who made the right decision?
Well, right now we're in a terror war. And right now what happened in California there's got to be protocols that are set forth. When you had the head of the school board there making the call on this, the chief of police didn't make the call. He made the call, and there's got to be a protocol where he then contacts the FBI Joint Terrorist Task Force, where they contact law enforcement. There has to be a joint call on something like this, because there's going to be more of this. What you did was you put about 800,000 kids out of school. They now asking their moms and dads, why was I taken out of school? This was a threat against them. Psychologically, these kids are hurt. This should not be done on the spur of the moment type thing. It should be evaluated, and the threat should be disseminated. And a person in security or law enforcement should make that call, not a school board head.
Well, David, I think the superintendent is the guy who's in charge, who makes the final decision. Maybe to Bo's point, they changed protocol. But during his press conference, he mentioned that they get these a lot. And there was something for it. I don't know why this particular communique spurred him on to do this. We obviously understand San Bernardino seared into the minds of people that live there. In fact, funerals are just still going on to this moment.
Okay. I'm sure he's a very well-intentioned man. There's no doubt that that was the motivation for his action. However, just like I wouldn't give him advice on a math curriculum that he was going to put in place in the school district, he doesn't have the necessary training, background, and experience.
So let me do this, because you're going down the same path as Bo, and I'm going to ask everyone, David, you first. What is a credible threat? Here's what happened to me. Saturday, I'm pulling up to the mall. I look, and everyone's outside of the mall. This is a big mall in New Jersey, a big luxury mall. They evacuated the entire mall. The entire mall. They opened it up 4 or 5 hours later. Businesses lost everything. If it just takes a phone call to shut down a mall or a school district, then this country's in a lot of trouble.
Let me just give it 95+% of the time. Phoned-in threats are hoaxes. So you start with a predisposition towards or a bias towards it's not credible, unless there's something very specific and compelling about the information that's given. If that doesn't happen, you elevate security, you pay attention, you make sure the police are on high alert, you make sure the teachers know to look out for anything that is out of the ordinary, but you don't. It's like you get a bomb threat in a building, you don't immediately evacuate unless there's some other reason than just a phone.
What do you think, Steve?
Listen, lessons learned that yes, there should have been a protocol, but there are a lot of armchair generals that don't even know what they're talking about. This man was in a very difficult position. You know what I give him credit for? Making a decision. He did not sit on the fence. He made a decision. And Charles, I'll tell you, if a firecracker went off in one of those schools today, that man's job would have been on the line. He would have been fired. He thought he did what he thought was best to protect those children. Look, maybe it didn't turn out the way that you would expect, but you know what? We say in the media, and the police have said, everyone but the White House had said, you hear something, you see something, say something. This guy not only said something, he took action that he thought was in the best interest of his school district. And yes, I agree, lessons learned moving forward, there has to be a proper protocol.
I think one of the things that we all agree on, we're at a war. We're in war now. ISIS wants us dead. These radical jihadists want us dead. What we have to do is set into place in our schools, our teachers, our custodians, something like this. They're talking about a bomb in a knapsack, something like that, something where they can search, do perimeter search. If they see a suspicious package, they could call the police bomb squad there. We have to effectively deal. This is not going to end now. There's going to be more of this. So you have to put in place.
I do want to also mention, guys, there's breaking news just now. Everyone should know that school district in Los Angeles will reopen tomorrow. So, you know, they've gone through, they've done everything that they wanted to do, even despite the fact that they declared it a hoax. I think they took a look-see anyway, David.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, David. Charles, if you mind, Charles. Bo, you mentioned something very interesting before, and I'm glad you brought it into the framework here. The psychological effect on children. Absolutely. How about being honest with our kids? How about being honest with the students and saying, look, we are at war. This is what war is all about. Understand what this is, and these are the things that can happen. I guess the thing is, though, is that when we've been blessed to be the country that never had to fight a war on our soil. Right. Particularly with the kids.
And I'll guarantee you,
I know my mom used to tell me about when the planes flew over and they talked about Khrushchev and they used to have to hide under the table. They were afraid. I mean, my mother said only two things scared her as a kid. One was those planes flying overhead. And I guarantee you one thing. I guarantee you, not just in California, across this country, parents are talking about it and thinking about with their kids if something happens. This is resonating. What does terror bank themselves on?
Well, what's
Hold on one second. Let's bring Dave into this.
Okay, look. Doing the wrong thing has as many problems attendant to it as not doing anything at all. For example, let's say you're a terrorist. You want to find out what's the school district going to do when we put in a threat? Or let's say I want to put a bomb in a building or a school. I figure I can't do that. An knapsack-sized bomb is not bringing down the structure, period. I don't care what you put in it. But you can put in a phone call, empty children to the street, or empty an office building onto the street, put bombs in a mailbox or in a parked car, and kill dozens or hundreds of people that way. So you don't take action precipitously. I understand he was well-intentioned, but you have to have somebody, maybe you call the Joint Terrorism Task Force, you get the police chief involved. You don't make the decision independently without some other.
Great points, guys. Everyone, here's the thing. Invariably, this is going to come up. Maybe some form of armed guards there, or training. That's training the teachers. Now, what about the idea of training teachers? Well, people saying, "I don't want my math. I don't want my kid's math teacher toting a gun."
You have enough military guys and law enforcement that are retired. Let them carry a gun because we know one thing. They want body count. I certainly want to know if my kid's in that school to have a former law enforcement fully trained. If this guy comes in there with an AK-47, he's going to have to put another clip. When he's putting his other clip, that's the opportunity for a well-trained guy to take him out.
We've said it quite often. We're living in extraordinary times. We're going to have to take extraordinary circumstances. We've said it once. We'll say it again. The war is coming here. Right. America, wake up. The war is coming here.
What happened today, can we say to a certain degree that the terrorists are winning? Can we say, hey, you know what, they're winning. They've got us on the ropes. They've got us making these knee-jerk reactions. You know, almost every single day they're landing planes. A lot of it doesn't even get reported. I mean, they're pulling them down quicker. You know, it doesn't take anything.
When you get a president,
our backs are against.
When you got a politically correct president that refuses to go through social, when I do backgrounds on people for employment, I do a social network check. When they're not doing social network, and all of a sudden he's against. Anytime you say anything against Muslim, he puts his head in the ground. Political correctness is terrible as far as I'm concerned because we're going to have dead people because of it.
To your point, Charles, there are enough people who are school teachers today who were former special forces in the military, who are retired police officers who have a second career as teachers now. They have a basis or basic level of training. You put them through some training. I mean, we do it for law enforcement all the time. You get people to the level where they can take action, and at least you have an option. Because I can tell you that the people in San Bernardino, for sure, would have been very, very happy had there been someone trained with a firearm in that room when that shooting started.
And that message has to come from the top. It has to come from the White House. It hasn't, and it won't until after the election.
But local municipalities can take it upon themselves, and it would be interesting if you can get a place like a California or New York to say, hey, you know what? Putting aside all the ideology I've had, what I believe in, I know keeping kids safe, and that's the one area nobody disagrees.
But Charles, you're right about municipalities, but cops are so afraid to do their job today because they're not going to be backed up by their local leaders, by their government. We saw that all summer. The message has to come down from the White House, from the Congress, and from the Justice Department. Do your job, we'll back you.
But the moral of the story here was that ultimately New York City did the right thing.
Yes, they did.
And there should be a procedure put in place.
Soft targets, if you notice, you've got police posted on soft targets. They're coming at soft targets. You have to have the equipment to combat them. And without a gun, you ain't got no equipment.
You know, I've said this a million times. Imagine 4, 6 heavily armed terrorists walking into Macy's on 34th Street this time of year. You've got 10, 12,000 people at any given time shopping in that
What
store.
happens?
Well, we saw that happen in a mall recently in Africa.
Yeah, and I don't think there was a right and wrong, the tale of two cities. I think they were both did the best that they could.
I think it was a great chance to learn that we've got to your point, we've got to establish certain protocols. But again, like I said, it happened to me on Saturday. I was really shocked to see this entire mall empty. We saw an entire school system emptied out. We can't run a society if you can make a simple phone call and empty out malls.
But I'll bet you, if you read that email, you'd see why they thought it was a hoax.
There were a lot of mistakes in there. There's like spelling Allah with a small a instead of a big A, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we know today's terrorist scare in L.A., coupled with San Bernardino, Paris, it's capitulated terrorism and national security. They are now the top concerns for Americans. Chancellor, known for welcoming refugees with open arms, well, it appears that she has come to a conclusion, the same conclusion that and multiculturalism doesn't work. At a conference yesterday, she said this. She said, quote, multiculturalism leads to parallel societies and therefore remains a life lie. She continued to say that Germany will now reduce its admittance of refugees. Angela's epiphany. Let's talk about it. Joining me now, Erica Canuti, Democratic strategist, Steve Rogers, and Heather Hansen are back with us. Erica, it's a lot of people in America, when our debate was raging, and it still is to a degree, about the Syrian refugees, particularly as it gets closer for them arriving, said, well, look at Germany. They're taking 800,000. They're taking 1 million. They've got these open arms. They understand compassion. Maybe they don't anymore.
Well, I think, that was kind of also a false comparison. We've taken in about 1,200 people, and we've been fighting over a pledge to do 10,000. Part of the reason why I think the burden on Germany has been so high is because countries like the U.S. need to help ease that. We need to take our fair share.
But now you have Germany saying, hey, you know what, this is a mistake. These people don't assimilate. It's risky. It's a lot of people. It's expensive. I don't know why she came to this epiphany, and maybe it's politically motivated, but for her, who was sort of the guardian angels of the global Western refugee program, to do this about face is kind of embarrassing, and it puts a lot of progressives in America in an awkward position.
I think it definitely puts some people in an awkward position. I think it has a lot of people stunned right now. But I do think that there's a difference between accepting refugees who are people fleeing violence and a regime that we don't agree with, and ISIS, an entity that we are at war with, and yet to not accept the same people that are fleeing that violence and fleeing that ideology, I think is still counterproductive. It's not the same thing to say that multiculturalism and accepting these refugees, that they can't be, that they have to be one or the other. I think you can absolutely say that there are challenges to multiculturalism, but we still have to deal with this refugee crisis, and we have to deal with it like adults. We have to kind of maybe take some people that we might not want.
Steve, they arrested a top ISIS recruiter, a guy named Sven, who actually was converted, but the danger is all throughout the West. We know this. And then, of course, the other side of this, Steve, is the multiculturalism part. We've seen photographs, and we understand neighborhoods, and whether it's Paris or parts of Scandinavian countries where the Muslim population refuses to assimilate, refuses to adapt any of the local customs or cultures. And people are afraid that maybe if you keep going at this rate, they will evaporate. Those cultures will fade away into nothing.
Absolutely right. Charles, I wonder how Time magazine feels tonight after she came to the reality that multiculturalism doesn't work. Look, this is the United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. The fact of the matter is that multiculturalism reminds me of the old slogan, the melting pot. Well, at the bottom of a melting pot, you get sludge. Fact of the matter is that we have to, people who come here have to assimilate to this country.
See, I think the melting pot can work, but the thing is you can't say, give me all your ingredients and I'm going to make my own soup. You have to be able to come in and work together. And I think this is something that she recognized as early as 2010, but the problem is the politics started pushing her the other way. The truth is immigration is a process. It can be done, but the people who are coming to any country have to be willing to assimilate.
I think the melting pot thing works, and I look at America on July 4th and everyone's at the baseball game eating hot dogs, and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. It's a beautiful thing. All right, guys. The multiculturalism thing, Europe is in trouble. All right, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.